Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana Harris Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. Andrew DiCecco, Inside the Birds, Football at 4. The trade deadline has come and gone. One more refresh. I do not see any deals from Philadelphia. If there is something out there that I missed, you can let me know. I do not see something there. I do see Deshaun Jackson is expected to be released. Apparently they couldn't work out a deal for him. So we'll start there, Andrew. No deal at the deadline for Philadelphia. Are you mildly surprised? Did you think they would do something? Did you think they would start pairing off veterans? What's your reaction to assuming nothing comes in late here, that there was no deal at the deadline?
Well, I'm not really surprised, Mike. I mean, when you really look at it, the NFL trade deadline is very tame compared to the NBA and the Major League Baseball and even hockey. So, I mean, the Eagles, I didn't expect them to be sellers, at least not for, they're not give away a player if it doesn't make sense. But right now, I think that they believe in what they have right now on the roster, and they think that they're starting to turn a corner, and we'll see what happens here. They have a very favorable, schedule, and they're going to, by all intents and purposes, they're going to be able to make a playoff push here.
Yeah, you just said it, Andrew, and I know a lot of people. Do you find it odd? Like, I tweet out that, hey, they're only one game out, and people are like, stop it, they beat the Lions. Do you legitimately think, you got Carolina, Minnesota, San Francisco, Atlanta ahead of you right now in the playoffs? Do you feel that this team is in the playoff race? Do they feel they're in the playoff, or are they just, kind of hanging around the playoff field?
Well, before the season, Mike, I had the Eagles slated as a 8-9 record. So basically probably the final team to slot in there for a playoff, for one of those wild card spots. I think that they're better than some of the teams that are sitting above them right now. I think they're going to have a chance to make up some ground here if they continue to build momentum that occurred on Sunday and utilize the formula that was so successful for them against some of these teams that they really stack up pretty favorably against. They need to win a lot of these games, but I think that they're a lot better than some of the teams that they're vying against for one of those final spots.
All right, so at this point, I want to get your take on what you saw Sunday that Nick Sirianni did on the offensive side of the ball that was encouraging enough for him to continue to do, that they can keep doing. What did they, obviously they ran the ball a lot, but can they keep doing that? Why were they able to be so successful? Was it something they did, or was it Detroit's just not a very good defense?
Well, they decided to lean on their offensive line, which, as we both know, is one of the strongest position group of the entire team, possibly the strongest position group on the entire roster. And they just, they blew the Lions off the ball with success early on, and they established a dominance and, and they made the point of attack there. So they just continue to do it. Why go away from it if it's being successful? They were ripping off large chunks in Boston Scott and Jordan Howard. And it sort of took a little bit of the pressure off of Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts accounted for 85% of the team's entire offense going into the game, which is, an immense responsibility for such a young player. So I think it allowed Jalen and Nick Sirianni, for that matter, to take a step back, find a recipe for success, get out of there with a commanding 44-6 blowout, and look at it and reassess what they are as a team and what they're going to be successful at. And Jalen Hurts, although he only attempted 14 passes, I think that he made the correct decisions when he had to. He still left a critical field and missing Devontae Smith for a would-be touchdown on a corner route. But other than that, I think that it sort of took some of the responsibilities off of his plate and ran the football with great success.
All right. So did they find somewhat of an identity? Can they keep doing this, I guess, is the next question. Can they continue to go into games saying, this is now who we are?
Well, even before they leaned on the running game and toted the rock 46 times on Sunday, they found success running the football with Miles Sanders. I mean, Miles Sanders was averaging, I believe it was over 5 yards a clip. And, obviously it wasn't a large sample size, but this offensive line is comprised of people movers, and they're athletic. And Jeff Stoutland has these coached up well, and the blocking scheme is in position for success. So, I mean, it's not really a surprise. They're going to be facing a team in the Chargers that are very acceptable against the run this week. So they really need to go back and see what was so successful against the Lions and find a way to implement that again this week, because there's no reason why they shouldn't have anything less than 25 rush attempts this game as well, as long as the game doesn't get out of hand early.
Right. I mean, obviously, the games that they have lost, Andrew, they have not performed well at all on either side of the ball. In the games that they've been competitive in and won, the one game they lost 17-11 against San Francisco. The other three games that they've won, that those are times where you should be able to run the ball. But I guess the one thing is, are they committed to it? Will they continue to do it? The question I have for you is it Miles Sanders that they don't like? Would they have ran the ball that much, in your opinion, had Sanders been in the game?
I think so, and you can look to the first drive with the Raiders game when they did lean on Miles Sanders, and he was going to be prominent fixture in the game plan that week. And who knows? He was on his way to a very big game, and who knows what would have happened had he not sustained that ankle injury. And I think really what happened was sometimes you need to hit rock bottom especially as a first-year head coach, I imagine, before you look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, we got to make some wholesale changes here as an offense and figure out what we're going to do and figure out where our strength lies, which is the offensive line, and let them, instead of being dropping back and absorbing, pressure from defensive linemen, let's get these guys leaning on defensive linemen and drive them off the ball and get our running backs going. And in turn, you also take some pressure off your quarterback. So I think that they really had to they took that Raiders game to really sort of caused a big change in philosophy, at least for 1 week. Now you want to see if they're able to commit to it consistently on a week-by-week basis now, or if they're going to revert back to the pass-happy offense that they had been previously.
Yeah, now you mentioned it, the offensive line. You got Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and obviously that side of the ball, you got two mammoth guys, Johnson being back. This offensive line, we talked about it way back in training camp, we thought was going to be very good. It's had some changes and some pieces changed because of injury, but it looks like Landon Dickerson is starting to show people why the Eagles surprise some people by taking him in the second round.
Yeah, exactly. And like any young player, Mike, you improve with reps, and that's something that Landon Dickerson obviously needed. He was always going to be rusty when he eventually did find his way into the game. He hadn't played football since December. So, I mean, this is someone that really is able to show an established dominance when you're able to see what he can do against the run. And, doing and imposing your will on another defender, it allows you to settle into the game, and you're able to really your traits. And, I mean, Nate Herbig as well. Nate Herbig's a player that, when called upon last season, got better as the season went on, and you saw him have to get plugged in for an injured Jack Driscoll, and him and Landon Dickerson in particular really had a strong game.
I like yesterday, Nick Sirianni commented on Dallas Goedert and how excited they are for him. I would suggest that I would like to see more from Goedert, even though his usage has gone up. But I think there's even more from Dallas Goedert, that they can get. Do you?
Absolutely. The field in most of the games that they've played has been wide open and able to be exploited by Dallas Goedert, who is one of the more athletic and explosive tight ends that you'll find. And you really need to lean on Goedert, because when you look at their receiving core, where is the big-bodied, contested catch wide receiver that they can lean on in these crucial situations? They don't have one, Mike, so they really need to find a way to move Goedert around formations. And in doing so, you help a quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who has struggled mightily with ball placement, when you're able to have those bigger body receivers, it wide throwing windows, and it really just helps in red zone situations as well. So they really need to utilize Dallas Goedert and get him more involved early and continue to go back to him, because he's a tough player to contain after the catch. Guys aren't – he's explosive after the catch. He's not easy to bring down, and he wears on defenders, especially as the game draws on.
Yeah, the other part of this would be the lack of production from the wide receivers. Is that a product of how much they ran the ball, or is there something more there?
It's a little bit of both. And some of it has to do with the inconsistencies from the quarterback and his inability to see the entirety of the field, because there are guys getting open, Mike, down the field. I mean, I can think of that third down play where he missed Devontae Smith, and he ended up he threw a pass to Dallas Goedert on the left side that was ultimately Deshaun Hand, the defensive tackle, and they had to settle for a 43-yard field goal. That is, it didn't hurt them this week, but those are plays that as a quarterback you obviously have to make. And the Chargers will not be as forgiving this week as the Lions were, that's for sure. And this is a problem that Jalen Hurts has struggled with throughout the season. Now, on the other side of the coin, Mike, you'll find a lot of wide receivers, a lot of these wide receivers in Quez Watkins and Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor, they're not the biggest guys. And sometimes they struggle with the physical corners, and they aren't consistently able to create space. I will say that Devontae Smith has struggled the least with the play from the corners. I think he gets open pretty regularly, but the same can't be said for the other two players. So I think it's sort of it's a two-sided coin, and in order to remedy that, they really need to get Dallas Goedert and get him on the perimeter to take advantage of that.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Defense, my man. The Eagles linebackers. Give me a breakdown of what changed, what helped, and what was different, and what can they build off of with what they did with the linebackers. It seemed that they made a little bit of a personnel change.
Yeah, well, when you look at the Lions roster, they were very deficient in terms of playmakers. They only really had, with Jamal Williams out, you really only had DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson as two players that you needed to minimize in order to really stunt any sort of progress from their offense. So basically, I don't think that if you apply pressure on Goff, which they were bringing, they played a lot more single high safeties. He blitzed a lot more. Jared Goff wasn't able to sit back there and pick apart the defenses in the short to intermediate area, dinking and dunking, and they were just a lot more aggressive. Obviously, T.J. Edwards and Davion Taylor played the bulk of the snaps for the linebackers. Alex Singleton came in and had a nice blitz on the play that Derek Barnett got in there for the sack. But it was a lot more of an aggressive approach, and they brought that safety down, and they really smothered their running game. And Jared Goff isn't going to win throwing the ball to Khalif Raymond and Amon-Ra St. Brown and these guys. They weren't going to let that happen. T.J. Hawkinson had 10 catches for 89 yards, but he didn't have the impact because he was always under duress. So, hat tip to Jonathan Gannon for entering his approach this week or last week.
Yeah, I mean, Edwards had a big day. He seemed to be all over the place, but it seems that week to week, teams are going to go find him because he's not great in coverage. They don't have a lot of guys to throw the ball to. So can you play Edwards as much as you did? I think Gannon still has a little bit of decisions to make moving forward here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's unsettled. I mean, this was the Lions, granted, and the Lions did play a lot of teams tough this year, but they're very limited in terms of playmakers. So then you have to look at, okay, can you bring in next week? Can you roll out T.J. Edwards and Davion Taylor against a Chargers team that has a surplus of offensive firepower? I don't know, but, I mean, we'll have to see how he decides to do it. But I think that you have to find two linebackers and really settle in instead of playing linebacker musical chairs, because that's not really going to promote success. I think that you have to at least go with the pair of linebackers that you used against Detroit and Taylor and T.J. Edwards, and see how that goes. But you need some consistency there, and I think that you have to have a similar approach of applying a lot more pressure to a player like Justin Herbert, which sort of alleviates some of the responsibility that had previously been put on the linebackers.
Hey, a lot has been made of the Eagles' misses in the draft over the last couple of years. but a guy like Milton Williams and what he brings to the defense, and what did you see from him, and how they used him a little maybe more and differently on Sunday?
Yeah, how about that? And I also mentioned Teron Jackson and Tui Pelotu as just the Eagles' young nuclear defensive linemen that got on the field and got the snaps and the experience, and also found some success. Marlon and Teron Jackson also got his first NFL sack, but Milton Williams is just he's a player at the point of attack, and they found a way to utilize him in multiple spots. And I really thought that he pounced and took advantage of a very porous Lions defensive line and picked up his first sack. I misspoke earlier. I said I meant Milton, but he got his first sack, and he was dominant. And there was some significance to that. If you remember, during the draft, it was a highly publicized photo of or a little video clip of Howie Roseman being excited with the Williams selection, and there was the other
Donahoe.
Donahoe wanted Aleem McNeil, who was on the Lions. And Milton Williams had a monster game and showed up and showed what he can bring, at least as a potential, as a piece for the future.
Yeah, that's right, because that was the one where Donahoe was not all that thrilled, and apparently he wanted a more run-stuffing. And that's interesting because Jon Gannon was asked about a week ago, like, how much input he had on personnel, and he said, I had some input, and, he went out and got Eric Wilson. I mean, that's a guy that he knew. And then what do you make of Wilson? I mean, he was inactive for the game the other day. So, obviously Wilson's a guy he went out and got. Anthony Harris, I would imagine, is a guy that he probably pushed for. And you wonder on draft day, did he have a say in which of those two players would fit better in his scheme?
Yeah, you have to think so. I mean, I think that with the selection of Milton, getting more of a pass rusher and someone that has positional versatility to play the edge and play the interior. And then when you look at, obviously, the Eric Wilson, we have to talk about him being inactive. I mean, he really he's a fall from grace. You go from starter to seeing your snaps reduced to being inactive. I mean, his best utilization right now would probably be on special teams, where he excelled with the Minnesota Vikings. But obviously, that's not what was envisioned when they brought him on. But he really doesn't factor into the equation at all because he's being outplayed by the Davion Taylor, by even Sean Bradley on special teams, and Alex Singleton, and of course TJ Edwards, who I think is probably their top linebacker right now. And Anthony Harris has been injured. So those two, if he's had input on those two guys, which we both think that he has, I mean, they haven't panned out. Milton Williams looks to be a fit in his scheme, and you have to wonder if he's going to see more snaps now as a result.
Yeah. Who was it? I know you tweeted out the snap counts the other day. Singleton seemed like he lost a lot of snaps, right?
Singleton snaps, he regressed in his snap share, and he was utilized more as a blitzer and in sub packages. But they really leaned on, and it was weird because Jannard Avery started the game with T.J. Edwards, but he wasn't as much of a factor. It was really Davion Taylor and T.J. Edwards that played the majority of the game.
I know now, of all the people that we talked to, Andrew DiCecco knows more draft than everybody. There was a trade. It just came in. The Eagles have traded for Kerry Vincent Jr. He was a 6th-round pick. Are you familiar with him?
Corner from USC, if I'm not mistaken.
Of course it's a corner from USC. You're right on the nose again. The second time the Eagles have gone to Denver, though, to go get a corner. So it's obvious that they still want to keep stockpiling corners and just keep getting guys there because, Steve Nelson's on a 1-year deal. We don't know what's going on with Slay in the future. I mean, he's getting a little older, so the Eagles continue to pump people in. That's Tom Pelissero reporting the Broncos are sending rookie Kerry Vincent Jr. to the Eagles it's actually for a 2022 6th-round pick. Not that he was a 6th-round pick. He very may well have been. I don't know. You might know that more than me, but there you go. So the Eagles did make a move. No Fletcher Cox. There was no way they were trading him. That there was like a $37 million dead cap on Fletcher Cox, right? Something like that?
Yeah, and based on what they're all getting from Carson Wentz, I mean, they would be absorbing, $71 million in dead cap. That it's just not feasible, Mike. That just can't happen. So I never thought that he was going to be moved, and obviously that was confirmed just 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. By the way, Kerry Vincent, 7th-round pick out of LSU. There you go.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I think he wore number 7 for them.
That I'll have to do more research on, man. But good stuff. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Check out his stuff. He has 10 observations plus a bonus observation over at InsideTheBirds.com on the Eagles' 44-6 win against Detroit, and they'll play the Chargers when Andrew's back on Thursday. We'll get a little bit more granular on the Eagles and the Chargers matchups. I look forward to that conversation with you, Andrew. Take care, my man.
You too, Mike. Have a great
All right, he's got 10 observations up, and one of the observations that he made that we didn't touch on is that Jalen Reagor, that they utilized him in the jet sweep. He had the one carry in the game, and then he had to get carted off the field. Yesterday, Nick Sirianni suggested that he could be day-to-day or didn't really give too much on him. I like the way that they used him on that jet sweep, too. He finally got that carry, hit that right corner, and got some 15 yards on that play. Football at 4 brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana Harrah's Resort, AC.